समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
It's almost as if Donald Trump has the gun to India's head and he has his finger on the trigger over trade. He has demands on tariffs. It's a good thing or a bad thing. That's a matter of debate, and that is also the issue for this week's national interest. What is not a matter of debate on the other hand, is the fact that you must pay for your journalism. You must not get your journalism for free. Your gift will not just be the benefits, the tangible benefits you get from being a paid subscriber to the print, but also an unwritten, intangible one, which is that you make a contribution to good, unhyphenated journalism, so vital in a democracy. So please go ahead. If you are not a paid subscriber, please do take a paid subscription. My screen will tell you how to do this. There will also be a link with the description. And if you have a subscription already, please do top it up. We will only invest it in good journalism, in getting our reporters to travel, to bring you top quality reporting and opinion, among the best you will see anywhere in the country, and definitely the most unhyphenated. That said, back to my issue for the week, my national interest issue for the week. So we ask, is the arrival of Donald Trump and the breathless rise of Trumpism a good or a bad thing for India? His song from the day he moved into the White House has been, "Everybody has robbed us, friend or foe." Since then, he's been relentlessly targeting friends first. Europe on strategic and defense issues, Canada, Mexico, and of course India, the tariff king, on trade. Here is my short answer. This change in Washington is like a gun held to India's head with Trump's finger on the trigger. It is also the best thing that could happen to India. Sounds nutty? Please indulge me for a few minutes as I make my case. As with any nation state of some size, and even more so a democracy, politics and economics go together. In the usual times, political leadership should determine the direction of a nation's economy. In India, that normal has had indifferent results at most times. At most times meaning up to 1991. The two moments when India carried out substantive reforms, it had a gun held to its head. The first, with the balance of payments crisis, often misstated as bankruptcy. India was not bankrupt in 1991. It was a balance of payments crisis. India did not have enough foreign exchange to repay its debt and also for its imports at that point of time. This created the need to go to IMF. This was in 1991, the summer of 1991, as we all know. And then the global sanctions after the Pokhran 2 tests in 1998. Trump threatening to pull the trigger, or okay, tariff trigger now will be the third. It is just what was needed to wake up India's establishment from its self-congratulatory, headline-managing fantasies. It is one thing to serve your domestic audience and your jingoistic fan following with the usual headline management, slogans like fastest growing major economy or the fifth largest and soon going to be the third, leaving Japan and Germany behind, etc., and a manufacturing revolution which we have been told has been coming for the past decade but hasn't yet made it, if not slipped backwards already. Is this Trump push then was the trigger that was needed to reverse this, to shock India into resuming some reform? We can learn by looking back a bit. Let's simply write off 1947 to 1989, that period of our history, as an economic nightmare. Some historians and economists might argue that Indira Gandhi in her post-emergency avatar, that is 1980 to 1984, had started loosening up controls, and Rajiv Gandhi continued on. In fact, even I have written a national interest headlined "The Iron Ladies rethink. I will share a link with you. But that was just early beginnings. She made some beginnings and Rajiv tried some after that, but it really was no reform of any substance. The idea that they began reforming the economy will convince no other than the deep old Congress partisan. If India's economic evolution and its first revolution owes anything to that Indira Rajiv decade, it is the balance of payments crisis that gifted India its first sweeping reform. There had been a lot of import in the Rajiv Gandhi years, and that is what led to that balance of payments crisis. P. Chidambaram, as finance minister, made some significant changes in the 1997-98, that is the Gowda Gujral era, with his dream budget. Most of these changes were incremental to the Rao Manmohan Singh reform, but a most significant move that opened the door for the stock market listing of PSUs and ultimately privatization also came in this period. This done, India had to wait for its next gun to the head moment. Vajpayee government's Pokhran 2 tests in 1998 and the avalanche of sanctions and rebuke from the US and its allies from Europe to Japan and Australia. As late Jaswant Singh initiated his dialogue with the Americans, you might check out both his account as also his American interlocutor Strobe Talbot's. The biggest pitch he made, besides India being a responsible nuclear power and counterweight to China, was to ask if US could miss the massive economic opportunity of a rapidly reforming India. This sparked our second reform. This compulsion to show to the Western world, whose friendship we now wanted, that they had to have a bigger stake in India because it was reforming its economy and it was going to have sizable big growth, which actually did happen after that. This sparked our second reform, again ranging from large-scale privatization of PSUs, including profit-making ones. Looking back today, it is a short dream that our generation had the joy of living. Since then, there's been nothing but Air India. Post-Pokhran sanctions, reforms ranged from privatization to FDI to imports, freedom to Indian businesses to invest overseas, privilege to ordinary citizens to spend $2.5 lakh every year of their post-tax incomes every financial year under liberalized remittance scheme or LRS, either to buy something overseas or to invest. In addition to all of this was indeed reduction in tariffs. Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha said in his 1999 budget speech that he had brought his tariffs almost to ASEAN levels. At a post-budget conversation with the media, he said that by the next budget, he'll bring them down even further. Then came Op Parakram, etc. So those crises of national security took place. And then Jaswant Singh came in as finance minister and continued on with reform. In fact, I was in London at the Financial Express Best Banks Awards, where Jaswant Singh, then as finance minister, was the chief guest. And he said, I am telling you all, he said, addressing India Inc., go out, go overseas, make acquisitions. How much money do you need? You need 500 crores? I'll give it to you. You need $500 million also? I'll find that for you. Go buy assets overseas. That is how that second burst of reform reached its peak. In the UPA decade that followed, none of this reform was reversed, except a block on PSU privatization. In fact, such was the continuity with that reform that even the privatization of Delhi and Mumbai airport was not stopped, although there was a lot of pressure from the left, which was actually an ally, an active ally, although not a participant in the government, but an active ally of UPA-1, without whose support UPA-1 government would have collapsed in one day. Yet, UPA-1 continued on with the privatization of Mumbai and Delhi airports. Going back, the first pushback the Rao Manmohan Singh reform in 1991 encountered wasn't so much from the entrenched socialists in the Congress party and generally endemic across our politics, but from captains of corporate India. Late Rahul Bajaj rallied together the heavyweights of corporate India under his so-called Bombay Club. Their argument to stall and postpone reforms was that of any other incumbent entrenched lobbies. This is too early to expose us to competition. In fact, protect and strengthen us until we can compete. जब हम उसके लायक हो जाएं, then you reform. It is to the credit of Narasimha Rao that he did not wilt, though he ran a minority government and Bombay Club had many supporters, or rather guns on retainer within his Congress party. But it was also because he could flaunt the compulsion of that IMF loan, its conditionalities, and the disaster that would unfold if India defaulted. The result was a spectacular creative destruction in corporate India. Of the 1991 equivalent of today's 30 Sensex companies or leading lights of corporate India, more than a dozen have completely disappeared. Many have also receded into insignificance. They are there, but they are insignificant. Think Hindustan Motors, Premier Automobiles, Orke. Remember Orke? Escorts. Those that embraced reform boomed. Tata, Mahindra, and for heaven's sake, Bajaj itself. New stars emerged: ICICI, HDFC, later Kotak Bank, Bharti, Infosys, Wipro. This creative destruction is the essence of capitalism. A point Sanjeev Sanyal, member of the Prime Minister Economic Advisory Council, PMEAC, made in an article earlier this week, lamenting the fact that this process has mostly ceased in the past decade. That means India's entrenched corporates haven't faced much challenge. That's what has made them smug. So how did we get there? That's the question. The Modi majority of 2014 was seen by corporate India, especially the oligarchs, to mean that the good old times of an all-powerful Mai-Baap government under whose Chhatra Chhaya, that is protective umbrella, they could prosper was back. Since then, we have seen the return of tariff rises in India. A small example, you might be buying in India the most expensive steel in the world. And who buys most of the steel? It's the government that buys it. The railways buy it. Defense buys it. CPWD buys it. Any government structure that is built buys steel. They are the biggest buyers of steel. And it is the most expensive steel in the world. Or almost. Any surprise then that the steel maker with the largest market cap in the world is Indian? Even the biggest Chinese firms that produce enormously more steel are valued lower. But can the star of stars of Indian steelmakers compete with any of the Chinese companies? That the pre-reform distortions are back is evident, with increasingly powerful oligarchs dividing up the market share and sectors, and government lapsing into that oldest belief that they can bring growth top down. Has it worked? Let's check out. Government's own data, that is from Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MOSPI. Government's own data, MOSPI data, shows that after 10 years of Make in India, the share of manufacturing in India's GDP in 2023-24 was exactly the same as in 2013-14. To the last decimal point, 17.3. This year, it is tending to be even lower, to fall even lower, with manufacturing trailing even agriculture in Q3, in third quarter of this ongoing year. More reality check, the contribution of manufacturing to job creation was marginally lower at 10.6% in 2022-23 compared to 11.6% in 2013-14. There is no evidence yet that this has improved in the subsequent years. I suspect this has fallen even further. At least that is what the data, the bits of data that come in from here and there are telling us. This data that we give you for 2022-23 compared to a decade earlier is from RBI's CLEMS database. While we celebrate the genuine success in smartphone manufacturing, it is true smartphones are being manufactured in India in very large numbers and exported. The share of exports in India's GDP has fallen from 25% in 2013-14 to 22.7% now. And that's according to Government's Economic Survey of 2023-24. The survey also tells us that accordingly, the growth rate of India's share of global exports has also slowed. It hasn't lessened, but just at the rate of growth, which was already very slow, has become even slower. The touching idea that state patronage will usher India into a manufacturing and exporting utopia has bombed. Indian corporates aren't even investing, despite the finance minister's repeated admonitions, because they see inadequate demand. They will not say it, right? They will keep smiling or looking the other way, or sometimes they will look like guilty school kids, but they will not invest. The fact is, while they complain about there not being enough demand in India, The same problem the Chinese manufacturers also face, but the Chinese manufacturers go out and export. Indian entrepreneurs by now in this phase have become too pampered to compete for exports. They are in fact petrified that India is about to let the Chinese make cars and more products in India. India needs another shot of difficult reform, of the kind only possible at the point of a gun. Trump holds that gun to our heads now. Drastic reduction in tariff production, other elements in Sarkari wet nursing will force entrepreneurial India to become competitive again. If some companies die, celebrate the creative destruction of capitalism. Out of this manthan will grow battle-hardened survivors and new stars of India's future.